There's some very weird, strange, and dangerous shit going on out there right now. In America, they are persecuting people for using their right to free speech and voicing their dissent.
It's nice to see Trump's approval rating is as underwater overseas as it is at home.
In my home, the America I love, the America I've written about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration. Tonight, we ask all who believe in democracy and the best of our American experience to rise with us, raise your voices against authoritarianism, and let freedom ring.
Let's hope Bruce Springsteen is allowed back into the country after he exercised his First Amendment rights. I mean, we have seen American citizens being asked questions about whether or not they're critical of Trump or having their devices looked at to see whether or not they've been critical of Trump on social media. The fact is Bruce Springsteen's message to his audience is, of course, so important. He had a litany of things calling out Trump for his lawlessness, including and starting with Trump trying to take away First Amendment rights of people who have been even doing something as simple as publishing an opinion about being critical about our foreign policy. The fact is perhaps a sad state of affairs that major law firms who have normally been willing to take constitutional and very important legal issues in our country against any president or administration were willing to obey in advance and enter into contracts with Trump rather than fight those executive orders in court. We've seen the same thing with major institutions again and again. Media companies who were willing to pay Trump, such as ABC, rather than continue their civil lawsuit that they had for years before Trump was elected.
In America, the richest men are taking satisfaction in abandoning the world's poorest children to sickness and death. This is happening now. In my country, they're taking sadistic pleasure in the pain that they inflict on loyal American workers. They're rolling back historic civil rights legislation that led to a more just and plural society. They're abandoning our great allies and siding with dictators against those struggling for their freedom. They're defunding American universities that won't bow down to their ideological demands. They're removing residents off American streets and without due process of law are deporting them to foreign detention centers and prisons. This is all happening now. A majority of our elected representatives have failed to protect the American people from the abuses of an unfit president and a rogue government. They have no concern or idea of what it means to be deeply American. The America that I've sung to you about for 50 years is real. And regardless of its faults, is a great country with a great people. So we'll survive this moment.
We need musicians like Bruce Springsteen who are willing and courageous enough to speak out more than ever. Because Trump is losing popularity. We are seeing it here. We're definitely seeing it abroad. He just had a trip abroad where we saw that Basically, Trump's whole philosophy and policies have to do with who is nicest to him last or who gives him the biggest gift. He had a particularly bad press conference where he tried to explain foreign policy around Ukraine and drones. And I say perhaps it's around foreign policy because it is in fact so hard to understand what he is talking about that I don't want to explain it for him like a lot of mainstream media does. The fact is what he is saying is nonsensical. So you can decide for yourself whether or not you think he's saying something that means anything or if it's something you would want your president to say when they're out in foreign countries talking about foreign policy, representing you as an American citizen. Take a listen.
When you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, the drone is killing tremendous numbers of people. You hide behind a tree and the drone comes down and it circles you with fire. You don't have a chance. The tree comes down also, by the way. It's so intense. You see these trees being knocked down like they're being sawed down by a top of the line timberman, like you know who? Sean Duffy. Do you know that Sean Duffy, the head of the transportation department, who's working right now on the airports and getting a system because Biden didn't do a thing for 4 years?
New poll numbers and they are disastrous for Trump. NPR did a survey and they found that half of independents would rate Trump's approval rating at an F, and that if the election of 2024 happened today, he would lose by 5 points to Harris. How do we know that his approval is so bad? Well, Trump himself has called for the criminal prosecution of pollsters, which perhaps is the best indicator that, yes, his numbers are as bad as they seem. This is what he said in a Truth Social post. He said, quote, "Great pollster John McMullen, one of the most highly respected in the industry, has just stated that the failing New York Times poll and the ABC Washington poll about a person named Donald J. Trump me and fake polls from fake news organizations. The New York Times has only 37% Trump 2024 voters, with an ABC Washington Post poll has only 34% Trump voters. Unheard of numbers, unless looking for a negative result, which they are. These people should be investigated for election fraud and add it in the Fox News pollster while you're at it." Well, first of all, there is no election going on. So what's the election fraud there? And this is bothering him. It's bothering him because it's true. Yes, we are in a period of time where we're having the most authoritarian push forever, especially in our modern history. But the American people aren't for it. They're not for it in a big time. The dissatisfaction with him is growing. And we haven't even gotten to a point where we're having empty shelves. Today, the Supreme Court heard an oral argument where the Supreme Court justices, even his own justice, Amy Coney Barrett, just eviscerated his lawyer. They are going to lose. Trump is going to lose at the Supreme Court yet again. Things are going badly for him, and he's out there making comments on his Truth Social, out there at press conferences in foreign countries, talking about nonsense, complimenting the marble of certain locations he is. He is an unserious person in a very serious job, and Americans are getting fed up.
In my country, we're fighting like hell for the democracy we once took for granted. And that affects all of us. That affects all of us here because the arts are democratic. Art is inclusive. It brings people together. Like tonight, art looks for truth. Art embraces diversity. And that's why art is a threat. That's why we are a threat to autocrats and fascists. America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of our premier cultural institutions. He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he has announced a 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S. Let that sink in for a minute. You can't put a price on creativity.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.